What's up guys, it's Championzard here, and today I'm going to fix this bubble crease on this first edition Kabuto. So a bubble crease is essentially where the top layer of the card has unstuck from underneath, like the adhesive has come undone so it's popped up. It's not like a micro crease where it's wrinkled. And so the first thing I did to really treat this was a 24-hour humidor session. Then I would kind of like pressed it down and then clamped between parchment paper and acrylic for 24 hours. But the main work comes with the hydro pump technique. So with the hydro pump technique, I put it between two acrylic plates, foam, as you see here in the video, and then parchment paper. But after putting 6 sprays of card spray on each pads of foam, put the parchment paper over that, and then the card between that, and then clamping it for a couple hours. It makes the card really wet and really malleable, even more so than the humidor, making it better for heat. So for this treatment, I'm going to use a lot of heat to really try to get that bubble crease to stick down. So to start off things, you saw me using the little fine point leather stylus tool, just trying to get it to lay flat to get it ready for the heat. So this little thing right here is called the bee drill. It's a little glass tool for precision, and I have a little butane torch that's meant to heat up the bee drill. So you don't want to get too hot or anything like that because too much heat can obviously damage the card. The butane torch is mainly just to heat it up, and you just use the tip of it. So you see right there in the video, I have what's called acetate paper over the card. So acetate paper has good heat transfer, and it allows for you to be able to use heated elements like the bee drill I've heated up right here without damaging the card. So right after I really heat the bee drill with the butane torch, if I touch the acetate paper, it's going to burn and smoke a little bit. So that's why you saw me tapping the acetate paper. Because if I go straight to using the card, it'll be too hot right after I heat it up. So I got to give it a few seconds to cool down to a temperature that won't damage the card, and then I can use it to start pressing against where that bubble crease is lying. I kind of go back and forth using the little clay tip tool just to kind of get it to lay flat, and then I'm using the bee drill technique just to go back and forth, and I'm using a different type of lighter here, just grabbing what I had nearby. And what heat does is when it gets that bubble crease to lay flat, it's kind of like reactivating the adhesive. This kind of treatment I could also do with a heat press. You may have seen other restorers use heat presses for things like this. Like Kurt's Card Care recently did a video where he fixed a vial plume with a bunch of bubble creases using a heat press. This I just wanted to experiment using these glass heated tools and just to see how they worked and how they did compared to the heat press. So this localized heat is really just putting the heat on this one little spot where the bubble crease is, and the bee drill is really just a fine tip point for precision so I can really focus in on the spot I want to apply the heat to. And the acetate paper is really important because that's what's allowing me to actually use heat without damaging the card. If I damage the card with heat, then we've gone too far. So this right here is actually called the Alakazam spoon. It is also a glass tool. It's a glass spoon, and when you heat it up, it holds heat better and longer just because it has a bigger surface area than the bee drill technique does. So with a glass spoon, I can kind of just go over that wide area of the card and get a much bigger area for a longer period of time without having to heat up as frequently. So I'm just using it as like a finisher, applying a little bit of pressure just to make sure it kind of stays flat while the heat is being applied right onto the acetate paper. So I'm just going back and forth and doing that, and the glass Alakazam tool is just useful for longer duration and hitting a larger surface area. And you see right here, I'm kind of checking the card. It's looking pretty good. The main thing that you want to use heat for bubble creases, even if you get to lay flat, the bubbles could always pop back up at a later time. So I started off with the humidor session and didn't use any heat, and it got the bubble crease to lay flatter, but there's no guarantee that it'll stick without any kind of heat being applied. So that's why I used the hydro pump and use all these heated tools to really work this bubble crease, because bubble creases really do want heat to reactivate the adhesive. That's why Kurt used the heat press for that vial plume I mentioned earlier. And after using the spoon, I'm just going to go back and, just to be safe, finish up with the bee drill. As you can see, I'm tapping the acetate paper right there. And what's happening is, I didn't show it on the video, but it's actually burning the acetate paper a little bit, telling me that it's too hot. So once it quits burning acetate paper, that's when it says it's ready to do it. The glass little tip point bee drill doesn't really hold heat for that long, like the spoon does. So I only have a certain amount of time to be able to use it before it cools down to the point where it's not really going to be any good. So right now I'm using like a little precision Q-tip, just kind of clean it a little bit to just make sure there wasn't anything there. And this is after I've dried, and it looks really good. After the hydro pump and the heat, I dry between parchment paper and acrylic plates for a few days after swapping out the parchment paper every so often, and it came out really well. The bubble crease looks great, and I'm happy with how it turned out. My name's been Championzard. Thank you so very much for watching. Please like and subscribe, and I'll see you next time.